because God, you have been so faithful. There is nothing that you've given, taken away, passed through my hands or my life that you've not been right here with me for. And I believe that everything I've ever gone through, this, especially the battle for my worth and value and my voice, is like, it's not for nothing.
Hey, it's Daron Earlewine. Welcome back to the Daron Earlewine podcast, here with the one and only Lisa Graft. Lisa, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Now, Lisa, if this is somebody's first time interview or first time podcast, they're going to be like, who's this Lisa Graft? But I'm going to say for a ton of our listeners, our followers that have been with us for years, they know Lisa from Radio Theology through all the years of hosting the show. So you're not a new face at all to probably a majority, but to some, you know, we're glad to have you for the first time, but for the 8,000th time, really.
Yes, and this feels like the good old days. You know, I'm having a real moment here.
I like it. So just to catch everybody up, Lisa and I and Ryan Allward, we hosted a radio show for 3.5 years called Radio Theology. And we're still in it. In the midst of the COVID-19 quarantine and everything, the radio station we work for, the radio station company, had to furlough really all part-time employees. And so our show, Radio Theology, was put on furlough. And right now it's somewhere in the grand land of Furloughville. And we don't know if it's coming back or not, but the exciting thing to have Lisa back on the podcast and is just to realize that the journey that got us into the radio show, Lisa, was truly, you know, we talked about on the radio show all the time about this process of just saying yes to the opportunities that God brings. And you and I and Ryan said yes to the opportunity to do the show. And there was no guarantee. We signed no contracts that it would be a 10-year journey. But I think all of us in the midst of it, we have so much fun doing it, and we love the opportunity to impact, the tens of thousands of people that we were each week. And we were really pursuing that the radio show might become like our deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, syndicate this thing nationwide. It's going to be big. We're going to reach millions of people. This will be our life. And then a virus shows up around the world, and in literally one phone call, it's like, well, no, that's actually not going to happen. Maybe, probably, who knows but it's gone. Yeah. And it brought so much meaning, so much purpose. It allowed all three of us to have a platform to use our voice to make an impact. And then in a moment that dream kind of dies. And one thing I want to hit on in this conversation is you've not stopped. You've not been sitting at home, twiddling your thumbs, crying and being like, oh God, why have you forsaken me?
I have been crying, but not twiddling my thumbs.
But you have not stopped pursuing who God has created you to be. And that's what I want us to hit. That's obviously what we talk about a lot here on these spiritual DNA sessions as a part of the podcast is this process, this journey to become who God's created us to be. It's not for the faint of heart, and it's not a one-time decision. And there are pivot points that come to our life that we have to persevere through. And that's what I want to hit. And so maybe let's just start here, Lisa, for somebody who might be brand new to the podcast. Give us just a little bit of the story of the yes that you said to step into doing Radio Theology, and a little of the backstory there, so we kind of get context for some of these major pivot points that have helped you, make this progress towards becoming who God's created you to be.
Yeah, I had been in radio for 7 years and started on a country morning show, and then moved to Christian radio when I moved to Indianapolis. And that's been 10 years ago now. And I walked into this little tiny studio and said, I want to be on the morning show. And they said, okay, we can't pay you. And I said, I don't care. I'm going to get up every morning. I'll be here from 6 to 10 live, whatever you need, I'm your girl. And I'm so glad that I did that, because that opened the door for me to get hired on full time when they could. And so I spent years being the co-host, the right-hand person to the lead guy. And that really helped me hone in my skills a little bit and get this fun radio history background. And then I had my daughter. And if you know anything about infants, you know that a 5 a.m. wake up call to get ready and go to a radio station, and then be live and then work at the station all day as well. And then I was doing 100 events a year. And it was just so much that we kind of collectively said, no, this isn't the thing. And so that was really hard to step away from, really hard to leave radio. And so I made a lateral move within the company to the graduate school. And so I did what I had to do, which I can say now, I hated every minute of it because I was traveling the state. So it was really lonely. And it was like I was sitting at a table at hospitals and, community colleges and all of these places. And I ran out of things to look at on the internet, right? Which I didn't know was possible. Like that's a real thing.
I've seen it all.
Yep, it's done. And I really literally felt like the life was being sucked out of me. But then at the same moment, I started digging into why am I here? Why am I on the planet? And I started asking those types of questions. And I really just felt like you have a story to tell. You need whatever it's going to look like. Like I am on the planet to inspire authentic relationships within women, for themselves, for others, and then for God. And so I knew that as I'm sitting at these tables going, I'm dying a so painful death. Why am I not able to share? What does it look like for me to actually start? And so that was the start of Radio Theology, was me driving in my car back from one of these horrible things. And I was praying, like, give me something, God, come on. Like, if this is what you want me to be, if this is who you actually created me to be, give me something. And it was one of those desperate prayers that never get answered right away. They don't, like, how many times you're like, I promise, if you just give me this, I'll never, whatever. It was one of those prayers. That's exactly when I was praying it. That's what I thought. But then I hung up, and this is the first time I hung up with the Lord, and bye. And then 5 minutes later, you and Ryan Allwork called and said, do you want to get back on the radio? And I'm like, whoa. And so that was the start. And that was like the easiest yes I could have said in life, probably, Yeah. Like, yes, I just asked God in a fashion that I've experienced very unlike God, to go 5 minutes later, I'm not even gonna make you wait for this. Boom. And then the rest was history.
See, and I think that the great part about that is we don't, like, I agree. We don't always have moments like that where it's like, I pray and 5 minutes later, ta-da, answers. But God was preparing you for that. Like you talked about, like the soul searching and the conversations you're having with him through that whole time as you're sitting there exhausting the internet. Like this isn't it. And I could settle for this, but there's a sense that there's more, and I've got to pursue that. And so God opens the door. You easy yes. You pivot into doing the radio show, and it's been 3.5 years of an absolute just ball. I mean, we have loved it, and it went from like you had been on the radio before. I had done just little things here and there with the Smiley Morning Show here locally for 4 years, just like every other Thursday, like wasn't a regular deal. Ryan had not done radio before. We had all, though, been using our voice, speaking, singing, all that kind of stuff. But I think it was kind of like, the first year was like, do we suck? And then, and then like, we kind of got our footing, and we're like, I don't think we suck, and then we started getting feedback from people in the industry, like, no, you guys are good. Like the show is good. And then we even got, this isn't like national news, but like we got opportunities or conversations coming to us about the potential of having a national platform. Yeah. And that didn't work out. And I think the whole thing for the three of us was kind of confusing. Like, God, this seemed like it came out of nowhere. This is totally you. We want to use it for your glory, for the kingdom. Like, so let's go full bore.
Yeah.
And it didn't the way we thought it would, in the timing we thought it would. And then I think what at one point maybe would, at least for me personally, would have been like my worst nightmare of like it going away, because I freaking loved it so much. It does.
Yeah.
And then I think we talk about it in spiritual DNA. I talk about the idea and the concept of a death of a dream.
Yeah.
And I wish that in life, I could tell people, hey, here's the deal. God's so good, but you're going to go through one. There's going to be a death of a dream, one of them.
At least once.
Right. And then here's how you get through it.
Yeah.
Now, living 4 decades, what I realize is if you chase and pursue dreams, you are probably going to experience the life cycle, the birth, the life, the death, and then potentially the resurrection of a lot of dreams.
Yeah.
And it's tough to persevere through that.
It's horrible. It is. It's so hard. And I'm an emotional feeler, like I, that's how I've always lived my life, is like, I jump in head first with all my emotions. And then I'm like, wait, what's actually going on? And so that makes it more complicated for me to really understand the truth of what's actually happening. And for me, that's been a lot to sift through. And it's in the allowing it that's been the hardest part.
Say more about that.
It's, so I know it's over, right? Or it's done for now. It's dead. And then allowing that to be the case, instead of trying to grasp at it and just, oh no, it's dead. It's dead. But I'm like, oh no, because this. And then that's part of like the bargaining stage of, grief. But it was allowing that to actually be real so that I could walk into it knowing, okay, it's dead. And what do you do? You've talked about this a lot. What do you do when something dies? You grieve it. Like, I had to let myself feel all the emotions. I had to let myself feel like worth outside of that, which before that, I don't know if it was possible. And so I think that was part of the allowance of, okay, if I'm truly doing this, which is hard for me, I'm like, I like to do this with the things I love. And so I'm like, if I'm truly doing this, then that's part of the process. And I was holding on to Radio Theology as like, okay, this is the answered prayer. Like, this is my voice. And through that, I have become, you've watched it firsthand, and it's almost impossible to explain how far I've become. And so to go, well, wait a second. No. I'm not letting this go, because I still want to become more up over here. It was so confusing and hard to go, do I still matter in here without that? And that was what I had to like ask the scary question.
So if I'm hearing you right, what you're saying is your perception now is that you had to let it go to really be able to discover your true worth.
Yeah. And really, because I've been on a journey for probably 2 years about really getting into the nitty gritty of figuring out what stories I'm telling myself in my head, figuring out what's true about me, helping other women do that as well. And so in that, living that, it's a lot of hard work, and it's exhausting emotional work. And a lot of times I think that I had found that. Like, I think that I was able to say, and it was probably genuine as best as it could be for the time. Yes, I have worth outside of everything I accomplish, outside of everything I give and serve, and how hard I love people. And like, I have worth innately within me because of God. And I think I genuinely believe that as best as I could in those seasons when I'm realizing that. But then it came down to, okay, I'm holding everything like this except for this one thing. And it was like my identity. Maybe not all the way, but too much, because it was not meant to be that. And so that was the hard part, going, do I still believe that I have an 8 worth? if I don't get to use my voice on this team in this way? And that's a scary thing to ask. But you do. I mean, I had to. And I did. And it's like so freeing now to actually be able to say, I am not holding anything like this anymore. Because God, you have been so faithful. There is nothing that you've given, taken away, passed through my hands or my life that you've not been right here with me for. And I believe that everything I've ever gone through, this, especially the battle for my worth and value in my voice, is like, it's not for nothing. I can't, like, if I'm on the planet to inspire authentic relationships in women, I can't do that unless I've lived it. I can't bring back a woman from the gates of hell unless I've marched there and come back myself. And so that was part of the piece that's always driving me, going, whatever you're living right now is not for nothing. It's for, like, whatever worth and value and everything I'm feeling and struggling with and wrestling to the ground and fighting for is meant to be mine, but then be reflected and given and poured out from me to others.
So good. So many angles. We could go over that. I kind of want to let it sit, because I think there's so much truth of what you and everything you just said, in so many places to get stuck in that process. And I think so often we do, you know, like you said, we either white knuckle it to hold on to whatever shred of whatever we can, or we're too terrified to ask those difficult questions, to sit in the awkward, to sit in the uncomfortable. But, you know, at least I think about it, just, I mean, obviously I have an insider's perspective, because, you know, I walk with you through this whole process. Is one of the things that I think, and you tell me if this is true, is you started the difficult process to pivot into pain prior to the death of this dream.
Yes.
And I think sometimes we're so scared of pain. We're so scared of the past. We're so scared of some of those things. It's like, you know, I hear people often, you know, brag about how, well, if I got negative stuff, I'd mash that down. You know what I mean? Like, cover it up, bury it, you know, build a house on top of it. Like, where I'm not looking back, I'm not looking in, I'm glossing over, it's all under the rug. And then when something does die, when something implodes, when stuff breaks, now it's like, I've got the pain and the sorrow of the grief of the death of this dream. And it's starting to agitate, you know, some, painful past stuff. And I've got this whole value, worth, you know, and you almost can't emerge from it.
Yeah.
But do you think, my perception is, you started this process of pivoting towards pain and having some real difficult times with the Lord and in community, figuring out, you know, who am I? How do I deal with this? How do I let God bring healing into it? Do you feel like that process leading up to the death of this dream equipped you to walk through this with greater perseverance and you know, and persistence?
Yeah, 1,000%. And I think when you said you don't, like, you're scared that you're not going to emerge, there were so many times where I was sitting in this pain and was thinking, I'm just going to stay here. Like, there's no hope outside of this moment. And that's the hardest part, is just to sit there and let yourself even go to worst case scenario, but then let yourself go to, but what if I was able just to stand up? Like, what if I just stood? What would life look like if I just stood up right now? And those were the conversations I was, like, literally having with myself as I'm stuck, as I'm feeling like there's so much piled in and around me that just forget it. Like, I can't inspire an authentic relationship in me. how am I going to inspire an authentic relationship with other women? And so that was so hard, but it was the pivoting into that pain. And then literally when I found, I will also call it a layer of healing, because there's zero way that this is all the way healed for me, Yeah. And so I found this layer of healing that allowed me to come up into the light, start really believing the truth that I am not invisible, that I am not only that, like I have light within me that is meant to shine out. And that is what I started really believing in that one layer of healing. And so in that process, I became a little less afraid of the dark. Because I like, you have all these, I mean, for me, it was like suitcases, okay, full of all these things that I had shoved away into a closet. And I'm like, I know they're there. Sometimes they try to sneak out. No, they're over here. And I don't have to deal with that because it doesn't matter anymore. But it does. And so it's like taking those suitcases and all the things that were kept in the dark, locked away, and opening it up and not being afraid of what the light was going to show. And it's scary every time you do that. I don't think the fear is ever going to go away when you do that. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I think that's a good thing. But it was inviting God into that process to go, okay, if the light is shining on it, I know it's yours. So like, illuminate the things that I need to see in this, illuminate the truth of that. And that really helped me. Like all of that whole word picture helped me not be afraid of what was in all of the suitcases.
Lisa, is it okay to be just a little less afraid of the dark?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's okay to be all the way afraid of the dark forever. Like, I don't think that that's a bad thing that should bring shame. As long as you're equally confident in the fact that the light will drive out the darkness.
Mm-hmm.
You can sit in that fear and you can hold on to it. That's fine. As long as you know that the light will drive out the darkness.
I agree. I guess my question was because it's like, I think sometimes we feel like for it to be a success or for me to believe I can get there, like, I got to be, and if we want to heap on some scripture, right? I'm going to more than a conqueror, and I'm going to be like, and I've got to dispel all the darkness, and I've got to be the most courageous, da 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 da. And it's like, no, I mean, what you might need today is like, you know what? I'm a little bit less afraid than I was yesterday, and that's today's win. I think about, why does when Josh was about to to begin to lead the Israelites into the promised land, like over and over and over and over again, God's like, be strong and courageous. Now be strong and courageous. Now remember, we're going to be strong and courageous. Now, once again, strong and courageous. It's like, I heard somebody say recently, like, why did God have to tell Joshua over and over and over again to be strong and courageous? Because he was scared.
Yeah, right.
Like,
and for good reason.
And for good reason. And it didn't, the fear necessarily didn't completely subside, but it was like being able to walk in it and go, I'm going through this process and I'm still kind of scared, but I'm a little bit less scared than I was yesterday. So I can do today with a little bit more courage.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's like all of life. Everything that I've experienced has been just the smallest steps. And I know, like, some people get really frustrated by that because, like you're saying, they want the huge, ginormous leap for mankind or whatever. And it could be, but no, sometimes just forward motion at all is enough. So if you're crawling, then crawl, if you're walking, then walk. But if you can sprint, get out there. And right now I'm sprinting, but December, I was crawling.
I think it's almost even what you said about even if I can stand up, like it might just be, can you just like, the scripture talks about, you know what I mean? When you're having these attacks, like, just stand firm. So it could just be, you're not making any, I'm just standing.
Yes.
But I love what you said. If you can stand, stand. If you can crawl, crawl. If you can walk, walk. If you can walk, if you sprint, sprint. And you are sprinting. And that's why I want to pivot to that. And it's been interesting that you said the word sprint, because that's the term I've been using of like, we were told 90 days, you guys are done. And we don't know what's happening afterwards. And so we've all kind of embraced this terminology of, hey, we have a 90-day sprint, to figure out where we're at, what we're doing. And I want you to unpack what you've been doing. I think we're probably, I don't know, almost 60 days into the time right now. What have you been doing the past 60 days? And I love it. I'm inspired by it. And I think it's so true what you said is you God has given you a voice, and you are a storyteller. You know that from going through spiritual DNA. You know who he's created you to be. But as a storyteller, you got to have a story to tell.
Oh yeah.
Because it's like, if you're a storyteller, it's okay, tell us your story. It's like,
I woke up today.
Hey, so I'm here. My name is Lisa. Like that's the first page.
Yep.
So you've had to discover that process, and I love the perspective you're bringing to that, because how easy would it be to be like, I'm a victim. This is terrible. Life is hard. I have it could be so quickly be a pity party in any pain that we all go through.
Yeah.
But I loved if you already shared about, it's the quote I always say from Alex McManus, Erwin's brother, right? That the gospel always comes to us on its way to someone else. And that kind of perspective has allowed you to take this pain and allow it to be transformed into passion. But what's the sprint look like for you right now?
The sprint is actually, part of it is going back in my mind to where God has been faithful in the past, where God has shown up. And so when I stopped to think about, okay, what's my sprint going to look like? I had to look back first. And in that, I remember 3 different moments over the last year that God has called 3 different women to my life and ministry. And so like last September, when I met with one of the girls, I'm like, she's like, I'm here, whatever you need. Da, da, da. I'm like, I don't need anything. I'm just maintaining my voice right now. And so I don't need anything. And it was like the furthest thing I could imagine was needing somebody to support me. And so, but that happened 3 times in the last year. And so I looked back and I'm like, okay, well, if I'm going to sprint, I better get the girls. So I rallied the troops and I just said, you have said that. If you still feel that way, join the dream team. And so I call them the Mother of the Year Dream Team. And that's what they are. We've been meeting every couple weeks. And when we just kept taking the next right thing, like doing the next right step, which for me, I thought it was going to be just creating this bigger platform of, I'm going to do more graphics and I'm going to get more social media followers and maybe I'll do some Facebook Lives and some videos. But then what the Spirit did in all of us, and this synergy that we have, is just blew it out of the water. And so when I say out loud all the things I'm doing, I'm like, who's doing that? That's amazing. And so we've built a 6-week Mother of the Year boot camp, which is it's a basic training program for moms to figure out what lies they're believing about themselves, get it down to their core identity lie, replace that with the truth, and live in this freedom and show up armed. Because I can't do anything about your overwhelm and your chaos. Right. And I'm not promising that. What I'm promising is I know how to armor up, and I'm going to teach you that. And I'm going to walk beside you, and we're going to link arms on the front lines. And so that came to me on a Saturday. And by the next Monday, it was launched. It's wild, but it's so good. And then we were like, you know what? For 2 years, we've been talking about a podcast. Let's just do a podcast. And so last week we recorded our first 4 episodes of the podcast, and it's video and it's audio and it's good. It's so, so, so good. Like, we left the room going, was that us? Was that good? And then we're like, I think that was good, but it's like, and the good thing is, like, we don't feel like we can take credit for it. All of this is co-created with the Holy Spirit. And so that's why I can speak so confidently about that. And so it's the podcast. And through that, I already have started my book. And then now I have a second book idea that goes along with the podcast. And so, I mean, as soon as I say something out loud, it happens. Like, it comes to fruition. And that's the scary part of it. So my sprint is like fast and crazy, but I'm not scared of it right now. I'll
In this
probably
moment.
be scared of it. Yes, at this very moment, I'm fine. I'm just sitting at my kitchen table. But it's this honing in of, who am I talking to? Like, I know exactly where my voice fits. I know exactly where there's a void in the motherhood, all the voices of motherhood. There is a space, and it's mine. Like, I know that beyond a shadow of a doubt. I could draw you the diagram of where my voice fits. And if I'm not filling that, like, God's going to use somebody else to fill that space. That voice needs to be heard. So by me saying yes to tiny, tiny, tiny things, and now to these huge things, like, I get to be the one to fill that space. Like, that's my voice is here, and I'm staking that in the ground. And that's what my sprint is looking like right now. Just this conviction of, I have to do this. I don't have any option. I have to be the one.
I love it, Lisa. I think, we said for 3 years on the radio, right? Every week, God's for you, not against you. He's near you, not far from you. And he's created you on purpose and for a purpose. And we said that every week, not because we needed a cool catchphrase, but because that's truly what we believe, what has guided and is guiding our lives. And it's like, you look back at what you just said in the past 30 minutes, it's like, or there's moments where I had to realize that, like, God was really for me. And then it got hard, and I had to realize, yeah, God's right here with me. Oh, and he's continued to be. And now I am created on purpose and for purpose. And it is actually right here. Here it is. I know what it is. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. My guess is, because I'm discovering some of the similar things, in my sprint. And what I can say, and like I said, I'll let you disagree or agree, but what I know for me, I don't make the time or feel the confidence and the weight of and confidence, maybe of worthiness, to do some of the things I've done and to pursue what I'm pursuing in the past 60 days to the next 90 days, if the original dream doesn't die.
Yeah.
And man, I know that's true for me. I think it's true for you. I still don't conceptually like that concept.
I hate every minute of it. I want 20 more hours in the week so I can do both.
Right.
I don't have that. I don't have that capacity. And so that's that's been the hard part, is like, how do you really grieve something that was so good, but then let it stay dead instead of trying to resurrect it in a way that it doesn't look. Now, I don't think that, like, the three of us, when we were together with our voices combined, there's something so magical there. Like, we were good. And I think the world could still need our voices together at some point. And so that's what I think when you're talking about the resurrection of the dream. It might look totally different down the road, but if we're not doing what we're doing now, like, if I'm not honing in on my voice, that will no doubt, if this comes back, that's the voice that the three of us will need.
Yes. So
I need to be here now. And it's for such a time as this.
I love it, Lisa. The thought that comes to me as you're saying that, and then we'll land the plane, because we're supposed to not have hour-long conversations, but I like hour-long conversations. It brings you back to the biblical image of the disciples, and they got all their own stuff going on. And I didn't even think about this until this moment. Then they had 3 years with Jesus, right? And then he dies. And even though he tells them, I'm going to die, I have to die, but I'm coming back. Like, he sets the whole thing up. They're not listening, right? Because they're in their own idea of what it's supposed to be. They kind of get that he's the Messiah, but at the same time, they think maybe he's setting up like a governmental thing here on earth, and we're going to rule, and let's get some swords. This is going to be great for us. Like, they have no ability to conceptualize the fact that, no, he's getting ready to reconcile the entire universe back to the Father. Like, he's setting all things right. And so they go through this, and as Jesus is, the day that he's dead, like that's one of the weirdest scriptures to me in the Bible is when it talks about that he went and like preached to the souls dead before Noah or whatever. Like there was some serious stuff going on in the unseen world, on Saturday, let's be honest.
Yeah.
And so God's doing what only God can do in a way that no one can see what he's doing to set up what this resurrection plan is going to be. And the disciples all go like, I guess we're fishermen again.
Yeah.
He's been saying, hey, you're fishers of men. We're going to change the world. You guys, we're going to build, listen, Peter, you're the rock. I'm going to build the church upon you. The gates of hell won't prevail against it. Like, we are changing the world. And they're like, yeah. And then he dies. And it's like, yeah, fishers of men, that was cute. But
yeah,
I'll go get some more fish. Let's go back.
Fish. Yeah.
And one thing that I'm so, I just want to affirm you on is that in this moment where some of the unseen things that God's doing, like, and I've gotten to watch it for 3.5 years, like you've not gone back to being like, you're not the Lisa Graft that was driving back from a job she hated, begging God to give you a little morsel of purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, and you're not going to ever go back to that. Like, you're stepping into the pain, you're stepping into the process, you're trusting what he's doing, and he is just beginning to unfold huge breakthrough after breakthrough as far as becoming who you were born to be and stepping into that purpose. And so, really proud of you. Great job.
Thanks.
So good. So good. So what's maybe somebody says, and we'll end with this. There's somebody watching right now and they go, I knew Lisa, I kind of heard, but I am Mother of the Year. What is it? How do I get connected to it? That's something I need in my life. Connect them.
Okay. IamMotheroftheYear.com is your place to find all the other connection points. But it's a movement for moms to really move from isolation and fear and this overwhelming chaos to really finding confidence, community, peace, freedom. And then the deeper layer of that, if you need more than just the surface, is, we are walking alongside moms, sometimes holding hands, to help them discover and live out their true identities. And it's incredible. The community is incredible. The mission is incredible. And I truly believe that we're changing mom culture. And if you're listening to this, we probably need you.
Yeah. I love it. So how do they get connected? Just IamMotheroftheYear.com?
IamMotheroftheYear.com, and on Facebook and Instagram and all the socials. All the things. Mm-hmm.
So good. Lisa, I knew it was going to be good. I didn't know it was going to be this good. You surprised me.
I'm glad to know I still have it in me.
You still got it. Anyway, thanks for tuning into this episode. We got more content coming your way. Connect with Lisa, and it's so good. So proud of you.